Well, let's get started, and if people show up, well, they're late to the party. So, hey guys, welcome back. It has been a long time. December was our last tech talk. January we had to take a little bit of a rest thanks to COVID, but we're back, and you didn't miss anything. This is the same one you would have seen last month. We just pushed everything down. So, this month's topic is invisible design. And I know you guys are probably thinking that design is supposed to be visible. That's kind of the whole point. So how can we possibly have a design that's invisible? And we'll get to that, and hopefully by the end of today, you'll be able to point out all of the invisible parts of any design you look at. So first, as always, let's take a look at what we'll go over today. First up, what it isn't, before getting into what it actually is, and then why it's needed and how it works. So, what isn't it? Well, we're going to start by looking at this ad for a bottle of gin. Now, I don't know if you guys can pick out anything that seems odd or different, hidden maybe, but I'll give you a couple of seconds before revealing the answer. Anyone see sex in the ice cubes? Yeah. Subliminal messaging at its finest. If you buy this gin, you will get lucky. That is their guarantee. And they're hoping that people will pick up on that and buy their gin. So, subliminal messaging is something that branding and marketing companies love, but psychologists and behavioral scientists really say it doesn't work. No one actually is influenced by any of this. But it's pretty fun, so let's take a look at a few more examples. Wendy's, they did a major logo redesign, and it looked almost exactly the same as the old logo. But they added something hidden here that if any of you guys can find, feel free to call it out. All right, we got mom in the collar. Because the first thing that everyone thinks of when they eat Wendy's is that it's a home-cooked, great quality meal, just like what mom would cook.
I was looking for a hamburger in there somewhere.
So that's Wendy's. Next we got Tostitos. Everyone loves Tostitos at a party, but there's a hidden image in here that pretty close. There you go, two people sharing a massive chip over an even bigger bowl of salsa. Next we got Amazon. Now,
Smile. We all know Smile.
yeah,
Everything from A to Z.
exactly. A to Z. I didn't even have to say it. You guys know that one. Amazon sells everything from A to Z. Last we got this one, the shampoo commercial, or ad. And in this one, at first everything looks normal, and then something seems a little bit off. I'm just going to point it out. That is a man's arm. That's right. It's not hers. It's a guy's. So, this shampoo is clearly the best to use. So that's some subliminal messaging for you, and that is what invisible design is not.
I could just be low ad budget on that.
Probably was. So what is invisible design? Well, the definition is that invisible design is unobtrusive to the point of elegance. Now, what is that? That doesn't sound like anything. Really, the primary purpose is to allow users to complete their objectives with minimal effort. So that sounds pretty good, but why do we need it? Now, to go over that first, I'm going to play a video that explains how our brains work, and hopefully that emphasizes one of the main reasons why minimal effort is something that's so important.
Our brain requires a great deal of energy to operate, particularly when we have to concentrate and think about something. Problem solving or making a decision not only uses more brain energy, it also can be a slow process. So our brain seeks to conserve energy by developing efficient ways of operating. One way it does this is through conscious and subconscious processing. Our brain seeks to automate much of what we do to save us time and brain energy. These are our brain's subconscious processes. They take care of our basic life functioning, our fight or flight response, and our learned behaviors and habits. We don't really think about these things, they just happen on autopilot or have become second nature. In fact, up to 95% of all our behaviors and reactions happen at the subconscious level. Our subconscious is also involved in the recording and storing of our experiences and knowledge, forming our memories. These are stored in our brain like photos in a picture album, which we can refer back to later. The way we think and feel about these experiences forms a frame around the photo. This is how we give people, objects, or events meaning. Over time, this is how our attitudes develop. For the most part, our subconscious processes help us navigate the world efficiently. Yet sometimes we might develop unhelpful habits or attitudes that prevent us from achieving our goals. This is where more conscious thinking can benefit us. Our conscious processing involves our higher thinking capacity, where we can be more mindful and considered in what we think, feel, and do. We can use conscious thinking to reprogram our subconscious and change our thoughts, attitudes, and habits. While thinking consciously takes more energy, it is how we take greater control of our brain and achieve our goals.
Yeah, so that does a pretty good job of explaining it. But just to highlight how much more our brain likes doing things subconsciously, every second your brain is processing 500 times more information subconsciously than it does consciously. That's because, as was said in the videos, conscious thought takes a lot of effort, and our brain really doesn't like that. So whenever it needs to use energy to think, we start to feel annoyed, frustrated, or impatient with whatever it is we're doing. And when we're using apps, there are a lot of things that make us feel frustrated. Cognitive load is a big one. This means when there are too much information or too many options on a single screen. But other things like logical layout, system crashes, confusing flow, constant notifications, logouts, textures, the list goes on and on and on. So we have all these things to think about, and design opinions are formed in just 17 milliseconds. That's it. That's all the time you have to make a good first impression when someone comes to your app or website. So this is why isn't that surprising that 9,999 out of 10,000 mobile apps will fail. But it isn't all our brain's fault. Sometimes apps and websites really are just that annoying. Google Analytics ran an ad campaign that really highlights how frustrating it can be to navigate through an application by comparing it to shopping at a grocery store.
Hey, just that, thanks.
You sure?
Yeah.
Username?
Oh, Nick M.
No.
NM 1983.
No.
Zandy Pops.
Sorry.
Zandy Pops.
No, okay. Don't worry, I'll help. What's your postcode?
Oh, it's GU749ZT.
Welcome back, Nick Forever. Please listen carefully to this bread license agreement before continuing with your purchase of a loaf of bread. If you do not, blah, blah, blah. You also agree not to use any bread-based product for any purposes prohibited by United Kingdom law, including without limitation, design, development, manufacture of missiles, chemical, nuclear, or biological weapons.
Tick.
I'm afraid you've timed out.
What? Sorry. Hello? Excuse me. Oh, yeah, hey.
Just one loaf, sir.
Yeah, we just...
What's your username?
It's Nick Forever, but number 4, not the...
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to check that you're a real person. Could you say that for me?
It's not even a word.
Okay, how about this one?
You know what, forget it.
This one?
Harry Potter Nice.
You're in.
Great, I'm in.
£8.85.
It's supposed to be 98 pence.
Plus express delivery.
What's that?
Oh, well, it's express delivery. It's fast. So there's, standard.
Standard.
Standard delivery, that's £4.99.
Why?
Bread insurance. You didn't untick the don't decline bread insurance option.
You know what, I think I'll risk it.
It is quite close to the sell-by date.
Don't care.
98 pence it is. If you want to pop back in 5 business days, it'll be ready for your collection.
Well, I need it now, obviously.
Oh, OK. You want the take-home today price? Well, that's £3.27.
You know what, I'm going to go.
Come back soon.
I won't.
People who bought olives also bought Chardonnay.
Oh, all right. 78% of people who viewed Chardonnay also bought What to Do When He's Not That Into You.
Well, I'm just wanting to get some olives, so...
Why not buy all 3?
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't really need them.
It'll give you a total saving of 7 pence.
I think I'll still pass, actually.
Just some wine then.
No, sorry. What? You didn't know. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm not buying this wine.
Are you sure you want to remove that item from your basket?
Yes.
Why not try something new?
What, and buy something totally random that I've never shown any interest in?
Wilson Cape Memorial mug?
Yeah, okay, I'll take the mug. Obviously I'm joking, aren't I?
So this is a great example of how it's not always our fault when we get annoyed with apps or websites. There are 10 things that really frustrate us when we're interacting with the digital world. From small-sized text, tiny click targets, data loss on errors, scroll hijacking, autoplay with sound, super annoying, constant browser notification permissions, or permission to store cookies. These are just some of the things that bombard us and constantly annoy us when we're just trying to do a simple task online. So to highlight this a little bit more and engage you guys a little bit, we're going to play a little game. A game called A User's Journey. Now I'll need 2 volunteers, and each volunteer will be assigned one app that they'll basically create an account and log into. And just follow the instructions provided on the slides and do your best to log into your app. The winner, whoever does it first, gets this bottle of wine. Add a little bit of stakes to it. So any volunteers? Anyone? All right, we got you. Anyone else? One other person. Come on, there we go. All right, come on up. All right, pick which app. There you go. All right, so here is. There you go. All right. All right, you can be up here. You want to go back to your seat, wherever is easiest for you to write. There you go.
So what are we writing?
Just the instructions will pop up there, and then just do whatever it says. So, and let me know when you're ready to move on. Here we go. All right, Carriage Cuisine, please write down a username and password for your account with those requirements. And MyMatt, please write down a username.
Whoa.
Are you done?
Yep.
Awesome. Now you have to write down a password.
Okay.
Oh, too many numbers. No special characters. I'm sorry, you need more capital letters. Looks good enough. All right. Let's move you on to the next step. All right. Can you just do that for me real quick?
Yeah.
All right. Is something wrong?
No idea.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's asking you if you want push notifications.
Oh.
Yeah?
Yeah. No.
Okay, great.
No,
All right.
no.
Oh, no, you don't?
Yeah,
Okay. No push notifications.
No, thank you.
All right. And if you just click the continue button.
Yep.
Go click on the continue button.
Yeah. I don't see one.
Well, just look around randomly until you find it. It's somewhere. Oh, there you go. All right, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you timed out.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Can you start over and write down a username for me? Meanwhile, Carriage Cuisine.
I'm in.
Enjoy the application. That is great. You get to take home this bottle of wine. I don't know what's wrong. You couldn't do it.
Right.
So it was rigged. To make things a little bit fairer, you also get a bottle of wine. You can't make things too unfair here. You guys will never come back. But so this is what happens when users try to interact with apps, and it's really frustrating. And this is a major reason why people abandon things. They can't log in, they can't create the account once they're in. Who knows what to do? They try and click on controls and it's too small. it makes it impossible to use and interact with the digital world efficiently. So that's where invisible design comes in. But how does it actually work? Well, there are 3 levels of invisible design. You have aesthetic invisibility, interactive invisibility, and product invisibility. So first we're going to take a look at aesthetic invisibility. Now, one of the main principles of aesthetic invisibility is familiarity. Now, for those of you who were at my tech talk a long 2 months ago, familiarity will be, well, familiar. I talked in the last one about how important it was to adoption that things are familiar to those who are going to use it and interact. And invisible design takes it just as seriously. A button should look like a button. A text entry field should look like you're able to enter text. Without subtle cues about design, we have no idea how to interact with the app. The next is minimalism. Remember when I mentioned earlier cognitive load? This is key to avoiding cognitive load issues. Now, business owners want to fill every inch of space they have to deal with. It makes sense. They probably have a lot of content and want to make sure that the people who come to their app or website see everything they have to offer. But designers really focus on minimalizing design and having a lot of white space. This is to minimize cognitive load and allow users to really absorb what the most important content is. This is a great example of a minimalistic website. It's a UX UI design and branding agency out in San Francisco. Now, they have almost nothing on this screen. Their logo is in the upper left, again, a minimalized design. They have a minimalized side menu on the top right, a simple sentence telling you who they are, and all of your attention is on this. Now, if you were on their website, you could scroll down and see that that was a video. And they want you to really focus on the video because it shows what the experience is when you come to Clay. And it does a great job of presenting them in a really effective way. So now the next one is color. And color is the language of the subconscious. I'm sure everyone in here has colors they like or don't like, but no matter what, colors mean something to us. Take red, for example. No one can deny that red is a stimulating color that's used to create urgency, draw attention, caution, or encourage. Now, let's compare that to brown, which is used to stabilize, imply common sense, suppress emotion, but create warmth. And interestingly, UPS made a big focus on you taking brown and relating it to their company. Everything about UPS was, we are brown. And it makes sense when you look at what it's associated with. Reliability, stability, honesty, and comfort. These are all great things to be associated with when you're moving packages across the country and the world. Next up is emphasis. Emphasis allows you to set the focal point for your design. And there are a couple of ways to do it. You can do it through size, like in this example, or color, in this example. On this screen, most everything is some shade of white, except 3 main things. 2 are calls to action, controls that say, get started. The other is this big graphic reminding you what you came to this website to do, doing money right. That's a great way to emphasize actions and what people came to your website to do. Next is perspective. Obviously, when interacting with websites and apps, we're dealing with a 2D world. But using perspective, we can make it an engaging 3-dimensional world. First, let's look over here. The top one has no depth. The text and the background image are all on the same level. It makes it very difficult to read and figure out what it says. The bottom one, by blurring the image, provides depth and separates things into foreground and background. We can now read that much clearer. But that's not the only way to use perspective. You can use it like this. This automatically draws the user in and makes them more interested in what's coming next. This sort of perspective allows users to feel like they're engaging in an actual 3-dimensional world instead of a flat screen. Now we have typefaces. Typefaces is something that seems really boring and like it probably doesn't matter. But type is branding, and branding is super important. Similarly to colors, typefaces all have subconscious meanings to us when we look at them. Take serif fonts, for example. Those are associated with being traditional, sophisticated, reliable, practical, and formal. But over here we have slab serif. Slab serif fonts are bold and contemporary, trendy, friendly, and solid. That's a huge difference in the design and a huge difference in how users are going to interact with it. Next is motion. This turns designs into engaging stories. Now, I probably don't need to talk too much about how important motion is in design, because I bet most of you have been staring at the right half of the screen the entire time it's been up here. I doubt any of you had much interest in the text.
No. I care about, I'm a writer, I care about text.
That's very
Read
true.
all of it.
That's very true. This website, though, does a great job of using motion to help users move through their website and learn more about the product they offer. So this is all a lot of heavy stuff and it's a lot of information. So I'm going to take a second to break it up with a video that shows the frustrations that a designer might have when interacting with clients and trying to put together a design that makes sense.
As a new strategic initiative to increase market penetration, maximize brand loyalty, and enhance intangible assets. In pursuit of these objectives, we've started a new project for which we require 7 red lines. I understand your company can help us in this matter.
Of course. Walter here will be the project manager. Walter, we can do this, can't we?
Yes, of course. Anderson here is our expert in all matters related to the drawing of red lines. We've brought him along today to share his professional opinion.
Nice to meet you. Well, you all know me. This is Justine, our company's design specialist.
Hello.
We need you to draw 7 red lines, all of them strictly perpendicular. Some with green ink and some with transparent. Can you do that?
No, I'm afraid...
Let's not rush into any hasty answers, Anderson. The task has been set and needs to be carried out. At the end of the day, you are an expert.
The term red line implies the color of the line to be red. To draw a red line with green ink is, well, if it's not exactly impossible, it's pretty close to being impossible.
What does that even mean? Impossible?
I mean, it is possible. There are some people, say, suffering from color blindness, for whom the color of the lines doesn't really make a difference. But I'm quite sure that the target audience of your project doesn't consist solely of such people.
So in principle, this is possible.
I'll simplify. A line as such can be drawn with absolutely any ink, but if you want to get a red line, you need to use red ink.
What if we draw them with blue ink?
It still won't work. If you use blue ink, you'll get blue lines. And what exactly did you mean when you talked about the transparent ink?
How to better explain? I'm sure you know what transparent means.
Yes, I do.
And what a red line means. I hope I don't need to explain to you.
Of course not.
Well, you need to draw a red line with transparent ink.
Could you describe what you imagine the end result would look like?
Oh, come on, Anderson. What have we got here? Kindergarten?
No, I'm just trying to get...
Let's not waste our time with these unproductive quarrels. The task has been set. The task is plain and clear. Now, if you have any specific questions, then go ahead.
You're the expert here.
All right, let's leave aside the color for the moment. You had something there also relating to perpendicularity.
7 lines, all strictly perpendicular.
To what?
To everything amongst themselves. I assumed you know what perpendicular lines are like.
Of course he does. He's an expert.
2 lines can be perpendicular. All 7 can't be simultaneously perpendicular to each other. I'll show you. This is a line, right?
Yes.
And another, is it perpendicular to the first line?
Well...
Yes, it is perpendicular.
Exactly.
Wait, I'm not done. And a third one, is it perpendicular to the first line? Yes, it is. But it doesn't cross the second line. They're both parallel. Not perpendicular.
Oh, suppose so.
There it is. 2 lines can be perpendicular.
Can I have the pen? How about this?
This is a triangle. It's definitely not perpendicular lines. And there are 3, not 7.
So obviously this is really, really simplified to a point where no one would actually have that sort of business meeting. But when it comes to invisible design, you run into a lot of...
I feel like I've had a dozen of those.
So when it comes to invisible design, a lot of conversations start to feel like this because the designers are saying we can't have too much information, we can't have this there, and the client oftentimes says, well, just do it, that's what I want, so get it done somehow. So there's oftentimes friction between designers and clients, especially when it comes to invisible design. Now, let's move on to interactive invisibility. The first principle is something known as the Norman door. And the Norman door is basically any door that is difficult or confusing to use. I know most likely everyone in this room has walked up to a door and tried to pull it only to find out you're supposed to push, or push and find out you're supposed to pull. A lot of doors are very confusing, and those doors would fail the Norman door test. Now, very similarly in design, you have to make sure that the way it's designed makes sense and people can tell what they're supposed to do simply by looking at the design. That's why there are things called affordances and signifiers. Affordances is basically any sort of perceptible or visual clue that tells users what actions are allowed or afforded. Signifiers are an additional piece of information that adds just another something to the story. To give you an example, all three of these are buttons. Now, I'm pretty sure you all could tell that just by the way that they're shaped and how they look. But each of these buttons are a different color. That's where the signifier comes in. Over on this one over here, it's grayed out. And I'm pretty confident you guys probably would have guessed that that button is disabled. You couldn't use it. Over here, you have one button that's filled in and one button that's simply an outline. Now, that signifier is supposed to draw your attention to the sign up button. That's because for them, what's most important is that people sign up. Once you already sign up, they have you, they won. They don't care whether you sign in or not. You might, but they don't. So they want to draw your attention to the sign up, and sign in, well, you know, you can if you want to. Next is viewing patterns. Now, this is something that is definitely a subconscious thing that all people do. But there are different ways that we go about viewing screens. For example, this is a Z viewing pattern. It's oftentimes best for content that isn't very text heavy, mostly graphics or images or large controls. For example, and I would go across the top bar where you could see the listing of different Apple products, and then sweep all the way down to the bottom left corner and across to view the graphic and the text that's over here. In comparison, this is an F viewing pattern. This is for websites with a lot more content, a lot heavier text and information. So once again, you would start at the top left, scan across to the right, but then your eyes would stop at the next subsection of information and view across left to right again before going down to the next piece of information and repeating. So you end up with an F. Now, this is something that happens naturally, but if you have a design that isn't conducive to the Z or the F viewing pattern, it can oftentimes confuse and frustrate users because they don't know how to interact or view the page.
Sunny, with that, is the mirror image true for languages that read right to left?
Yes. So it's all based on our way of reading. So we go left to right because that's how we read naturally.
Gotcha.
So proximity and alignment. Now, it doesn't seem like, oh, yeah.
Can we go back to the previous slide? I don't really see that as a Z because I feel like I'm drawn to the Calling All Pros headline. I don't really notice the thing above it.
Yeah, so that certainly is emphasized here by it being larger, and someone might start there. So it depends on kind of who you are as a user, but even if you start here, your next thing is going to be going down to this bottom left corner and then going across. So it might be a much smaller Z, but it'll still be a Z in the general shape. A lot of people tend to like to look at the options that they have when they're coming to a site for the first time. So where can I navigate? What sort of objects or offerings is this person allowing me to perform? Other people like looking at graphics and bigger font first. So that depends a little bit on preference, but at the same time, you would still start at calling, go across, go through this text, and then go down to the bottom left and then across. So smaller Z, but it's still there.
I don't know. I might actually not do that, that's the thing.
Well, again, these are generalized, so not everyone follows them, but generally these are the viewing patterns that we see.
I just feel like we've been so trained to expect like that line at the top, and you don't usually use that functionality when you're on a web page anyway.
Yeah, well, it depends. I mean, if you were on a screen for MacBooks and you wanted to get over to phones, then you would probably see, hey, this is a MacBook page, I'm not going to interact with the
I
top
probably just want to
bar.
stay with the screen that I'm on, though. And therefore, might go from one text block to the next text block.
Yeah, well, if there's no more text blocks, then you'll go up to the top and search further. So it just depends.
Okay.
So, proximity.
I'm trapped.
Proximity and alignment. It doesn't seem like a big deal if an object was moved a little bit to the right or up a little bit or to the left, but it really does change the meaning of what you're looking at. And a great example of this is these two screens. Now, it's the exact same content, exact same image, and the exact same purpose. But the one on the right feels like it makes a lot more sense just naturally. The one on the left feels much more disjointed and like you're jumping all over the place to try and figure out what's going on. Another thing that is referenced a lot in the world of design that talks about proximity and alignment is something known as the one eye, one thumb test. Now, this is primarily for mobile phones. And the goal is to be able to use the app with one eye, so basically being distracted and looking at something else and looking down at your phone every now and then, and one thumb because you're using it in one hand. If you can't reach all of the important controls and navigate through the app with one eye and one thumb, you might want to rethink how things are aligned and the proximity between important objects.
How are the new massive phones changing that?
What was that?
How are the new massive phones changing that design?
So it's
the Pro Max and others.
Yeah, it's a big issue because a lot of people can't reach from the bottom all the way to the top.
Yeah.
So that's why Apple has done things like included the functionality where if you swipe the screen a certain way or with the buttons that still have home buttons, I believe you can press that in a certain way and the top of the screen comes down halfway so you can reach those things. So functionality is adapting to that, but a lot of people are frustrated by the larger phone, saying it's not as functional. A, I can't fit it in my pocket. B, when I try and reach something in the top left corner, I can't. So it's something that they're trying to figure out, and it might end up causing phones to get smaller again. Last is product invisibility, and this is somewhat what we were talking about. The way that the product looks and feels is just as important as what's on it. So in this example, it's a smartwatch, but you don't even have to touch the screen or press buttons to control it. Now that's just a concept, but that's where people are trying to go. Eliminate interaction with the product. Because no matter what we do, there are always going to be hurdles when interacting with an interface. But if you can shape the product, form the product in a way where it eliminates as many interactions as it can, then it will become easier and easier to use. But it has to be done in the right way with all of the other points of invisible design still staying front and center in the mind of the designer. So the last example of how a designer has to think and build something is a game called The Tower of Hanoi. And I don't know if any of you guys have played it, but we'll go through a quick example of it together. So the goal of this game...
That's how you play Toast. Start with the drops.
There we go. So the goal of this game is to get all of these rings from this spike over to this one. Now the caveat though is that you can't stack larger rings on top of smaller rings. So it always has to go largest to smallest. So in order to do this, there has to be a lot of forethought and thinking about how later steps impact your step now. So if anyone wants, where should we move this first ring?
Third one.
Third one? All right. Second ring?
Second.
All right, now what do we do?
What's the goal again?
One on top of two.
One on top of two. We are trying to get all of the rings from the spike all the way on the left to the spike all the way on the right.
Yeah.
So we got one on top of two.
3 others, all right?
One to the left.
Yeah.
Stack them up.
Good. So we got them all the way across, but you had to think about how the step you were about to take wasn't going to impact the next one. And as you increase the amount of rings just by one or two, by one or two, the complexity of it increases exponentially. So the minimum number of steps you can take to solve Hanой's tower as you get to 4, 5, 6 rings increases dramatically. It's the same thing with apps. The more functionality you want to add, the more complex it is to allow users to walk through it easily. So when a designer and when developers are putting together an application, they constantly have to be thinking 10 steps ahead. How does the current interaction affect things that might happen or might not happen down the road? So all of these things together is what ends up making a good design versus a bad design. And hopefully now that we walk through this, you can understand that the things that truly make you enjoy a site or hate a site or app are things that you don't even necessarily see or look at. It's all of the invisible components in between. So next time you're on a website or an app and you're really enjoying it or hating it, try to figure out why that is and where the invisible design could be improved to help the overall experience be better. So that wraps up the Tech Talk for today. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future talks, I'd love to hear it. Next month's talk is going to be about artificial intelligence. So big topic, very complicated, oftentimes can be pretty overwhelming. But we're going to try and talk about how it all got started, how AI works at a little bit of a lower level, and then mostly focus on the moral and ethical issues of AI and what it means for things like driving cars or diagnosing diseases in a hospital. So AI will be hopefully a lot of fun, and I hope you guys come back to learn how it works and how we use it. Thank you.